Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Steve Dolinsky, the founder of Pizza City Fest LA. Thanks for coming out today. Yeah, well, I'll take that. For those of you who have not been to our events before, this is the second one we've done in LA. We've done 2 in Chicago. We always have seminars, panels, discussions, demos. We want to teach people about pizza. It's not just about eating, right? It's about learning about pizza, appreciating it, understanding it. I mean, dough is a complicated thing. So we always have the dough whisperers as our first panel. We've had people like Chris Bianco. We've had lots of great speakers in the past at our events. So we've got an all-star lineup today. I'm going to let our moderator set them up and tee them up for you. But just a couple of things. We're here till 5 o'clock. We're back tomorrow. We've got 20 different pizza makers coming tomorrow. So if you really love what you see today, you can buy a ticket. We have a couple of tickets available for tomorrow. I can give you a discount code as well if you're interested in that. We have one more panel today at 3 o'clock right after this. Noah Galutin's going to be here demonstrating how to make great pizza at home. It's a little bit more for amateur audience than for professionals, but very educational nonetheless. Now, a really quick show of hands, because this will help our panel as we talk today. 3 categories here. How many people, and just raise your hands, how many people are just pure amateur, once in a while make a pizza at home, maybe have an outdoor oven, or it's like a special oven, but really just interested, but an amateur? How many of those folks? Okay, all right. How many people are like pretty serious? We do pop-ups, you make pizza frequently at home, you look at cookbooks, you look at YouTube videos, and you think this might be something for you? How many? Okay, less people. And then how many people are pros? How many people like, this is your game, you're all in on pizza? Only a couple of you. Okay, all right, this will be an interesting panel. All right, great. All right, well, I want to introduce our moderator today. She is no stranger to food and pizza in LA. Went to culinary school in San Francisco, a New Jersey native. Has written for Bon Appetit and Food and Wine and Travel and Leisure. She started a very interesting little pop-up called Pan Pizza, P-A-I-N, that's the French word for bread. Pan Pizza, kind of elevating the French bread pizzas of your childhood. I'm guessing a little better than Stouffer's. She is currently the contributing Los Angeles food editor for SF Gate. How about a big Pizza City Fest welcome for Karen Palmer?
Thank you, Steve, for the intro. First of all, can we all get a round of applause for Steve and Carol Chin for organizing this incredible festival, 2nd year. So exciting. I am so excited to be here with some of the best pizza makers, not only on the West Coast, but in the world, in my opinion. I'm so excited to chat with them and then to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions as well. So first we have Sarah Minnick from Lovely's 50/50 in Portland. You may have seen her on Chef's Table Pizza last year on Netflix. She's also currently a finalist for Outstanding Chef for the James Beard Award, which is not just the Northwest, but nationally, so congratulations. So excited to have you. We have Tony Gemignani from San Francisco, who also now has plenty of pizza places here in Los Angeles as well. Tony is a multi-award-winning pizza chef. He's been in the Guinness Book of World Records. He's written about pizza. He has Tony's Pizza Napoletana, Capo, Slice House. I mean, just, it's like the EGOT of pizza, basically. Tony, welcome. And then we have my friend, Daniele Uditi, who is one of the most beloved pizza chefs here in Los Angeles from Pizzana. Pizzana currently has 5 locations here in LA, 1 in Houston, 1 in Dallas. Daniele has not only been on, Best in Dough on Hulu, you might recognize him from that. And Pizzana has been on the 101 Best Restaurants in Los Angeles list, and it was a favorite of the late Jonathan Gold. So it's good stuff. So guys, thank you so much for being here. My first question is kind of basic, like when did you get the pizza bug? What was the first moment that you were just like, this is how I want to express myself in food? Whoever wants to begin.
I think it's on. Hello? Hi. Okay, so I have had a restaurant in one way or another for about 20 years now. And it started off that I had a restaurant with my sister, and we ran the front of the house, and other people cooked the food. And I became really interested in that part of it. And when before I had just been interested in how the front of the house operated and running restaurants from that side of things. I started doing that when I was like 17, running coffee, drive-through windows and things like that. And I always loved it. And even in college, I was like on the side running like the student-run cafe. And someone said to me, it kind of seems like you like that the most of everything that you're doing, including other than the thing you're studying. So I realized that was true. And after I opened a restaurant, I started to be really interested in what was going on in the kitchen. I started to pay a lot of attention to whoever I was working with, who was the chef. And so I started to experiment at home and cook a lot more and go to the farmer's market and start to see what vegetables were available. And then we decided to open a pizza place that could encompass all of those vegetables and ingredients that were grown locally. And pizza was just a really great way. It seemed automatic for me just to start with the dough and be able to top it with whatever was around and get them all to work in the right way. So that's how I first started.
Tony?
You know, you fall in love with pizza at an early age. I think it's one of your favorite foods as a kid, for me. So, my brother was opening up a pizzeria. I was 17 years old, getting out of high school. Wasn't sure what I was going to do in life. I've been in the business for 33 years now. I fell in love with it. And really cooking for somebody, that self-gratification that you have was very special. Watching my mom cook, like any Italian household or just growing up in a family that just loves cooking, watching my mom cook. I grew up on nearly 20 acres of apricots, cherries, fava beans. We grew everything, when I went in my backyard, I'd grab basil, I'd pick tomatoes, squash, oranges, lemons, you name it. So growing up, food was just such a staple, and then pizza became my life. Like I said, I started when I was 17. I just got out of high school. It took me 17 years to open up my first pizzeria. And then after that, I opened up Tony's Pizza Napoletana in San Francisco, which was actually opened just about 15 years ago. So, yeah, I love pizza. I live it. I love every style. It's something when I delve into the business, I celebrate every style. And, New York, Chicago was very territorial back in the day. This is what I do. Neapolitans hate Romans, and New York hates Chicago. It's very much like baseball or soccer. For me, I looked at it as, pasta. I can't say I love spaghetti and hate bucatini, and I love lasagna, but I can't stand manicotti. If it's done right, I think it's a beautiful thing, and I celebrate everything when it comes to pizza. So I do all styles. So.
Daniele?
You want to know why I love pizza?
Yes.
Well, I'm the result of child labor. That's what I am. So, in my family, I grew up in a family where my mom was a chef. My auntie is a very old woman, Neapolitan woman from the south that does bread. So we had an underground bread oven where we used to make bread for all the salumerias, the delis, in my little town close to Naples in Caserta. So at the end of the day, we all used to live under the same roof. And as a kid of 8 to 9 years old, I wake up very early in the morning at 3 or 4 a.m. hearing noises of people smoking cigarettes and mixing dough in the same room, which was fantastic. And as a kid, you see all these people having fun mixing the dough in a wooden madia, right? The madia is the container made in wood where you, in the old days, used to make dough by hand. And as a kid and loving to get dirty and seeing these people all getting dirty with slimes, basically, for me, the dough was my first approach to fun, to slimes. Then my family discovered that I actually was good at checking oven temperature, shaping the dough. I said, you know what, you have a talent for this. So you're free labor, so get to work. So basically, but at the end of the day, while we were making bread, was also with the leftover bread, we used to make pizza, right? So at 9 years old, I had breakfast with pizza with mortadella, like just bread with mortadella, and just crushed tomato that my auntie used to do in the basement. every in Italian, southern Italian nonnas and moms have in their basement. So we used to open jars, crush fresh tomatoes, and as a kid, I used to go by smelling like an amazing pizza god to school. So I was the envy of everybody. So pizza's been my life since the day I was born, and I still do it this day. I still try to eat as much as I can. It doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's dough, cheese, and sauce, I'm in it.
I love it. Thank you, Daniele. I'm curious for each of you. You know, there's obviously a lot of work that happens between pizza just being a passion or something that you grew up with to perfecting your dough. Can you each talk a little bit about, and Tony, obviously you do several different styles, like, you know, how you worked on that, what are the indicators to you that it's an excellent pizza dough?
I mean, I am a big fan of all types of pizza dough. It's true, I'm a little bit the same way. Like, give me pizza, I love it. But for the dough that we use at Lovely's, it really came from a love of bread first, and discovering sort of the West Coast baking tradition with some whole wheat, usually sourdough, and just that crusty, you know, crust and just the moist inside, chewy inside. I think like that's what I started to do first when I learned baking, and I just really translated it into pizza and tried to get the same effect. And one that was sourdough, tangy, really crusty, good with different vegetables and all different types of things kind of complement each other, and that's where mine comes from.
Tony?
Dough's, you know, the foundation of any great pizza, and balance is so important. You know, when you look at different styles of pizza, there's that traditional style, Neapolitan. It could be Detroit or Old Forge, Roman, Sicilian grandma. So for me, it's not over complex. I know a lot of people come to me and say, you're from San Francisco and, you know, I taste your starter, but, you know, I thought it would have been like really more tang in your back. And it's one of those things I said to that person, to a writer once. I said, yeah, do I want you to remember me for my starter, or do I want you to remember me for my pizza? And when it comes to each bite, it should take you through a journey. It should be 3 flavor profiles when it comes to pizza. It could be sweet, savory, salty, and sweet could be the tomato sweet. It could be slightly acidic from the tomatoes, but a balance of sweetness as well. But when it comes to dough, you know, it's something that we work on every day. Humidity, hydration. You're always trying to add more hydration, blend, you know, you blend flours, you're looking at your salt content. It's something that you always want to make better. You're content in life, but at the same time, you're like, can I tweak it a little bit? Can I make it a little better? So, you know, there's certain things to understand, I think. If I go to Old Forge and I have an Old Forge pizza, it should be a little dense and maybe bready, which is a term that you may not want to hear. But that's Old Forge. I don't want to have an Old Forge and have a crumb structure that's like Roman. That could be cool and everything, but you may not understand the style. So I think that's important to understand that, like, it's like having a pastrami on rye in New York and you have a pastrami on rye with Swiss. It should be Swiss. But I put Monterey Jack in it. And I said, well, it's better cheese, right? Yeah, but it's not really traditional. But it's better. Well, maybe not for the guy that grew up in New York that wanted to have that certain. So there's a lot of ways to look at dough in its entirety, and I look at it every day, and you're always trying to improve and understand it. And it's always something I think that we deal with in our restaurants. Nobody always has the perfect restaurant. Like at home, it's always 68 degrees or whatever that is. In the restaurant business, summer to winter to more humid environments, or as you grow, water's harder, softer. There's a lot of variables. So dough, there's so much variables. So it's like one of those things that I think we're always trying to strive to make it better. So, and understand it. So it's a lot to say, but sorry.
The question was the approach, right? How I approach the dough. So at the end of the day, the way I see it, like I am, you can hear it in my accent. I'm very, very Italian, Neapolitan. So when I came in the U.S., for me, the only style of pizza that was acceptable to be called pizza was Neapolitan, right? So I came with this very close mentality, very proud, like talking very badly about every other pizza that I had around me. I was like, my God, that is too cooked. That's a cookie for me. That's not even a pizza. But then the more I ate it, the more I was eating it, the more I told myself, I really like it. So why should I be stubborn and say to myself that that's not a good pizza instead of like being true to myself? It's like, I love New York pizzas. I love Sicilian. I love Detroit. I love focaccia style pizza. So I stopped having that mentality of very proud Southern Italian. I was more open on all the styles and all the people that were doing this, basically the same thing that I used to do when I was in that basement with my auntie and tried to get a recipe from her. It was hell, because my auntie is like, I went back, before opening up Pizzana, I went back to Naples and asked my auntie, okay, I need to open up a pizza restaurant, so I need a recipe from you. No problem. Let's go in the business. Let's make the dough. I have this starter, which we call crescito, which is basically old dough from the day before. How do you make that? Oh, it's a bag of flour, sometimes a bag and a half. Sometimes a punch of salt. Sometimes a little that's it. But I don't need little punch or bag. I need measurement. Shut up and make the dough. That was basically my recipe for the dough. The approach that I have since today, when I make dough, is you are already beaten before you even start making dough. So the best thing that you can do is to keep loving what you do, trial by mistake. Make the dough every day. One day you're going to get it right. I understand that the theory is very important, knowing the hydration, knowing the kind of flour, if it's a strong flour, if it's a weak flour, the W, I don't know how you call it in English, protein, there you go. But at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. So I call my style of approaching the dough is a gut feeling, because that's what I was, that's what was installed in me by my family. So I understand, and I read this guy's book. I read every book in the world by not understanding one thing or what I was reading. But then I had to explain it to me. By the end of the day, I went back to what I knew. What I knew was feeling it every day. You're working with live things, right? Even if you have the perfect recipe that you think you have it, you can make it every day and never comes the same. Trust me. We always been there. We always been there. And then you see it, you touch it, and you adjust it day by day. And that's the beauty about this job. You never have something that is truly perfect. It's something always there's a room to improve. That's the way I have the dough, that I see the dough. Always a little bit of room to improve the next day.
I think that's great advice for people who are just starting to make pizza, especially, and there were a lot of people here in this crowd. I'm curious if you two also have advice for, budding pizzaiolos, what they should, working with dough, not getting frustrated. Like, what would you recommend to people?
Yeah, definitely, like, being a little more accepting with what you're making, I think, is a huge key. And I think also being willing to let it change every day and, like, taking it, like, I want it to be consistently good, but the consistency can be, variable, and not getting, like, hard on yourself for an off bake or whatever else, because most pizza, especially like in early stages, if you start making it, it's gonna be better. Like, homemade pizza is very good, and even the worst pizza you make will probably be like better than a pizza that you could go buy, honestly. So I think, be a little less hard on yourself, be open-minded. I like that, like liking different styles, trying different styles, and making dough every day is a great way to learn, for sure. You will just, within a few weeks, be more in tune with what's going on and watching the ebbs and flows of the whole thing, I think.
Maybe understanding the style that you want to make first. Is it deep dish? Is it Neapolitan or Neapolitan? Is it a pizza or style that you can cook in your home oven at 500 degrees with 2 stones or 2 steels? Or is it that uni and rock box that you want to elevate and do a Neapolitan at 800 or 900 degrees? It's one of those things. What style do you love? What style can you recreate at home? What flour is best for that? There are flours that cook well at 500 degrees, and there's flours that cook better at 900 degrees. So understanding the style and the flour and ingredients that go with it and the temperature is a key. Dough it always goes back to dough. I mean, the maturation of a dough, is it 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours? Where is that sweet spot to make your pizza? So I think there's a lot to think about. But I always say, pick the style that you want, and then everything else comes. Don't fall in love with the oven and be like, yeah, I'm going to get an uni, it's great, and now I got to cook a deep dish in it. It's not really working out. Well, you almost chose the wrong oven for the type of style, so it's important to understand that.
Thank you, guys. Sarah, one of the things I found really interesting in your Chef's Table episode was the way that you use foraged and local ingredients. I'm curious to hear how all of you approach flavor combinations, topping combinations. Like, where do you get inspiration from? Love to hear a little bit about that.
I definitely use the if it grows together, it goes together theory. Usually if you go to the market, there are going to be like a whole collection of ingredients that go together really easily. And for me, I just try to be flexible, and then each ingredient, I just sort of consider how it's going to cook best with the rest of the things on the pizza. Like, do you roast it first? Is it raw? And I really collect kind of different methods of sizes you chop, sizes you combine, and I love foraged ingredients. I think they make really great pizza toppings. And there's always usually the other favorite thing I like to do is to pair them all with different cheeses. So if you work with a cheesemonger, you can go talk to them about, like, I have nettles now, I need a super melter, or I have like fresh tomatoes and they're really wet, so I need a drier cheese. Like, to me, those considerations really help. And talking to different farmers, seeing what they love, seeing their favorite things that they grow. That's pretty much how I put these things together.
I think it could depend on the style. Like, if you're doing a Detroit-style pizza and you want to use brick cheese and blend it with cheddar, you're looking at St. Louis and you want to use Provel, or you're looking at Neapolitan and you want to use a Fior di Latte or mozzarella di bufala and a San Marzano tomato. So there's regional styles, regional ingredients. That could be upside-down pizzas with whole milk mozz, sliced Avorio, part skim. So I think it's important to see that. Then you're looking at that maybe California-driven, farm-to-table, farmer's market style. And a lot of times people think that more ingredients go on before the pizza. It's really what you finish a pizza with, how you beautify it. Sometimes a home chef will just say, I want to put pepperoni, salami, mushroom, and sausage and olives and put my pizza in, and it comes out and it's a little too heavy on the sauce and it's soggy and it doesn't look that great, and my cheese didn't melt well, and you used a cheaper cheese. I mean, the access to ingredients are so amazing now. Stanislaus, Di Napoli, Escalon. I mean, you can see ingredients like grande cheese, which we're using or most of us are using. You literally go online and find great cheeses and ingredients, or finishing cheeses, like she mentioned. So I think when it comes to the home chef, sometimes you just think, put as much as I can in, try and get it in the oven with that peel, take it out, and it really didn't cook well. I think really understanding the style and getting regional ingredients and looking for local ingredients, I think is important. So,
What to me, it's the way I see when I choose ingredients is how can I tell a story. So when I came in Los Angeles, I discovered there was beautiful farmers market, right? So you go to farmers market, and most of the time, the inspiration comes from the people that you talk to. So there is beautiful farmers, and I love hearing their story. I love even hearing the problem that they have sometimes when they have a bad crop of tomatoes. So the bug ate half of my lettuce, of my arugula. So basically, you have to base your doing on what's available out there. So I try to respect the work of the farmers, first of all, the most, at least when I can, but I also run a business, so certain items have to be in a certain way too. But when I create my pizza, especially the style that I do, which is, people call it neo-Neapolitan or Neapolitan, I call it my style because that's the pizza that I used to do with my auntie with leftover bread. So I use Neapolitan oven. I use bread dough, and I cook it longer than the Neapolitan crust, because I want the ingredient to hold on the crust. Neapolitan pizza is not meant to be sliced and eaten like this. Neapolitan pizza is meant to be folded and eaten on the street, on the go, or in a nice restaurant, sitting down, knife and fork, and that's how you eat it. It's wet. So that's the style it is. People used to complain so much about that, and that's what I didn't want it to happen to me. It was a little bit scared for me doing straight Neapolitan, but at the end of the day, I went back to my childhood, and that's what I wanted to tell a story. So each pizza that I make is in between my story as an immigrant in the United States, so taking advantage of the beautiful produce that is available at the farmer's market, or telling a story of child labor, been working with my family. So the pizza that I make the most is a cacio e pepe. A lot of people say, but cacio e pepe has a lot of pecorino. I don't use pecorino. The only reason why I don't use pecorino on my cacio e pepe is because I have a small allergic reaction that makes my lips puff up like a beautiful Hollywood diva. So I use Parmigiano Reggiano and very small amount of pecorino in it. It still hit the spot, still have the taste and the lusciousness, but it's a way to tell a story even behind a little bit of problem that I had when I was a kid. So.
Just a couple more questions, and then we'll open it up to you guys for your questions as well. I'm curious to hear from each of you. Obviously, we're here celebrating Los Angeles pizza. Aside from your city, what do you think are some of the most exciting pizza cities right now?
Wow, that's hard. I think partway into my pizza making career, so many people would come talk to me about like the pizza that was made in their city, and I'd be like, I haven't tried it. So I made a point to kind of go everywhere. And I think for pure like history and informational purposes, I think New York City, I definitely loved seeing the really historic pizzerias and learning about like sauce on top and deep dish and all the different histories of those different pizzerias. I'm not saying like, I think there's many amazing American pizza cities and of course in Europe, but I think that gives you like the biggest bang for your buck as far as getting all the different styles and a bunch of different experiences there, so.
Yeah, I think LA, there's been definitely a renaissance of pizza in the last 5 or 8 years or so, especially now. 15 years ago or so when Mozza opened, you saw Vito's that made a great New York slice out here. I think they were some of the first, and then Pizzana, came in hard, opened up a lot of restaurants, really catapulted it. And then you see a lot of mom and pop shop opening up, young guys opening up. You see it on social. I know some of them out there. I think when you hit tribute all the ways to Pizzana and you start going to everyone, Prime, some great pizza in LA now. It was never a pizza city. If anyone grew up here, it was really never known for that. San Francisco, I think, has been really strong. Of course, Portland, Seattle. But I think LA it's getting better and better, and it's no one can say right now that LA doesn't have good pizza. It's like saying Vegas doesn't have good pizza. Vegas has great pizza, and there was a renaissance there that John Arena started, and we came in 11 years ago, and you look at Good Pie, Secret Pizza, and you look at all these places there. So pizza's so worldwide now. You can say pizza's great in Korea, in Japan. It's so different, and I think it's evolved very fast. You can become pretty good in this industry pretty quickly. I think the access to the internet, Instagram, seeing it. The trips that we would take around, I think are special. I think people have lost that because it's a little too accessible, saying, yeah, I can make Detroit. But have you ever been to Buddy's? No, but I can make it. It's good. But for me, it's about the experiences, the travels, the R&D. Before you could Google it, there's something that's old soul in me that I love to talk to an operator and been to Don Michele and waited in that line and sat there. Going to the one in LA is just as amazing, but just to be in that experience in Napoli and Spacca Napoli, and it's hot and you're having a Coke and you're picking one or two styles, it's something very special about that. We're lucky to be where we are in the pizza world right now. It's a beautiful thing, because I'll tell you right now, when I was a kid, there wasn't that many good options for pizza where I grew up. It was Uncle Joe's on the corner, and I got a cheese pizza, and I was happy with that. But right now, I think LA has some amazing, amazing pizzas.
Well, I will have to agree. Not because I'm in Los Angeles, but at the end of the day, when I opened up Pizzana 7 years ago, The only access to pizza that I had was Nancy Silverton was mozza, which was doing something resembling what we used to do in Naples as well, like taking fresh ingredients, put it on a pie, and showing it to people. I think the beauty about the U.S. is that because there is tons of Italian immigrants, the styles of the pizza changed in each city based on what kind of immigrants there were in the city. And then it got influenced even more by the other cultures. For example, at Pizzana, because my wife is Mexican, I make, right now especially, is an elote pizza, which is Mexican street corn. And as a Neapolitan, if I say that to my country, they're going to say, we are taking away your citizenship as a Neapolitan. But guys, it's delicious. There is Oaxacan cheese, which is called quesillo, street corn grilled on the spot. And even in the US, I even put pineapple on a freaking pizza. Now I'm going to go, guys.
You're fired, Daniele.
No, but at the end of the day, it's true. You know, the thing that I hate the most is like when there is when people tell you, no, you don't have to do that. You cannot do that, right? And I know there is more a proud thing that people say is like, no, pineapple is not good on a pizza. I agree. It's not good on a pizza with tomato, at least for me. But if paired well, even pineapple on a pizza can be good. So I did a pizza and I called it sacrilegious, just because for the hell of it. And in Naples, you don't even know what happened, guys. Like, I was a nobody before coming in the United States because I put pineapple on a pizza. If I go back to Naples, they're waiting me with, like, a witches hunt. Well, Sorbillo now is doing the same thing. So, but at the end of the day, that's what U.S. Does. And that's what it should be. You know, I was in San Francisco 13 years ago, and I stumbled in this guy restaurant, Tony Pizza Napoletana. I was in line with my wife, and all of a sudden I see this guy all full of flour, even the hair were white, and he hears me talk Neapolitan Italian, says, "You're Italian, come with me." He takes me by hand, takes me in his kitchen. I didn't even know the guy. I said, okay, I'm going to get abducted right now. So this guy is going to, you know, going to kill me in the kitchen just because I'm Italian. No, he was very proud and very happy to see another fellow Italian and showing me his craft, you know. And I had a bite of his pizza. I said, okay, he's American. How good pizza he can make, right? It's Neapolitan style. I can beat him every day. I was ready to talk shit about this guy every fight. But then I had his pizza, and I had to shut up. And I had to say, dude, I don't know how you do it. I'm about to open up a pizza place. You know, where do you get the ingredients? What do you use? And he was so open. It made me feel very bad as a person. It's like, I am a very bad human being. And that day, something changed in me. It's like, okay, maybe Naples is not the only pizza city in the world, but maybe the world is a pizza city. So.
Love that. On that note, why don't we open up the floor to questions? Does anybody have questions? Yes. Right
So he's talking about starters. Use a Polish or Biga. It's basically a starter that's a pre-ferment. One has more water, one's more hydrated than the other. It's personal preference. I hate when I went to Italy and said, it's Biga, you have to use Biga. It's like me telling you, you got to drink Coke and not Pepsi. Well, I like Pepsi. Well, what do you like? Do you like Coke or the flavor profile of Pepsi? I like Pepsi, then use Pepsi. In the industry, sometimes you go online or talk to people and say it has to be bigger, Biga, or it's personal preference. It's what do you like after you make your dough and it's the end result, you bite into it. What do you prefer? Is it a little bit more acidic like a Polish would be? Does the starter strengthen your dough a little bit? Would you add a little bit more water to it? Does the Biga have a different flavor profile? I mean, I can't tell you to use 5% Biga, 10% Polish. It's personal preference. And you may say, screw all that. I don't want to do it. I just want to make pizza and use yeast, which you can. Or I want to bulk ferment. So it's a common question. Like, which one do I use, Tony? Tell me. I'm like, which one do you like? There's not a wrong or right. Sure, if you add too much on certain recipes, maybe my dough won't brown as well, or it'll be almost stale, depending on the flour that you use. So there's a lot of trial and error, and what's special is for you to try it and see what you like, not what everyone else thinks. Screw that sometimes. Like I said, that writer that said, you went to San Francisco, I was really thinking your starter was going to be like stronger. I said, how was the pizza? He's, oh, it's fantastic. One of the best pizzas I ever had. I'm like, well, screw the starter, man. Like, thank you very much. I'm glad you loved my pizza. And it's just one of those things. There's not really a right answer to that. Yeah. I mean, I hope I didn't make it too complicated, but there isn't. There's not.
Well, I have a question for you then.
For me?
Yes, I have a question. Well,
Yes,
on this topic, you know,
Sure.
because at the end of the day, I use the Polish and I use biga too, right? Biga, mostly I use it to make bread. In Italy, it's easier to use, at least for me. What I notice with Polish, it's a little bit harder to handle it, especially if you go longer fermentation with the Polish, because it can have a percentage of ethanol on top. You see the separation sometimes happens with the flours and the water and the dough. Sometimes if you leave the Polish fermenting too long, sometimes you have this smell that is almost alcoholic.
Yeah. Maintaining a Polish every day is more difficult because the pH can go south on you. So a high hydrated starter can, if you don't feed it right, keep it in a clean container, and have it at a controlled temperature, it can go south on you. It'll separate, it'll have a sludge, and that's kind of maintaining it. It's easier to control a biga and loosen it out and slack it out to make it, a wetter starter. So maintaining, biga's a lot easier. Yeah, so you're 100% sourdough starter and you don't do any yeast in your dough, just 100% sourdough. And you're saying that your dough stretches out easier. It's more extensible when that happens versus when you use a commercial yeast. Well, commercial yeast can tighten it. Sometimes commercial yeast can have ascorbic acid in it, which is vitamin C, and ascorbic acid will make your dough tighter, stronger, and raise almost a protein value. So if you see in a flour, there's ascorbic acid in it. It's a 13% protein. It could be like a 13.5. So depending on the yeast that you use, depending on how much you use, how long you let it mature, how long you let it break down the starches to let it stretch out. There's a lot of variables when you use commercial yeast. And is it fresh cake yeast, rapid yeast, active dry yeast? So there's a lot of factors involved. I like my dough to never snap back. I like it to stretch out. I don't like it to tear or overstretch out. So having it stretch out easier is not a bad thing. It's better than having it snapping back. And snapping back is always a common error or problem for home chefs or even pizza makers.
Well, I came with a little piece of my auntie starter, which is, at the end of the day, it's not even a starter, right? It's what we do in Caserta, southern Italy. We use something that's called crescito, which is basically a sourdough, but with salt in it. Believe it or not. The only reason why we use that kind of starter is because we don't want the dough to go over sour. So the salt helps you with the pH a little bit. So I refresh it every day, and right now it's like it's been 67 years that starter has been my family. But if you want my sincere opinion, it doesn't matter how old is your starter, because you can start a new sourdough starter right now and wait a month, and it's already as good as one that is probably 100 years old. So this meat, at least for me, they can correct me if I'm wrong, to have like, my dough is from the ancient Roman, you can still see Caesar hairs inside of the... To me, it doesn't really matter. It matters what is the end result at the end of the day and the flavor profile that you are trying to develop to your pizza.
Yeah, I mean, I think mine is probably about 15 years old at this point, but I've tried to listen to a lot of different scientific explanations of starters, and it's still a little cloudy where all of those microbes and bacteria come from the flour, from people's hands. And I think in this, like a podcast I listened to, they talked about like bakers having 50% of the bacteria and yeast on their hands is sourdough related. And so it's easy if you work with sourdough to just start one and get it pretty populated right away. Yeah, a month, even a week,
Yeah,
10
don't
days.
take a shower. Don't take just make dough. Don't take a shower.
Yeah, we have we have starters that we make and use the next day. So 17-hour rise, yeast, water, flour, let it ferment, use it in your dough. So we do that at several stores. I have a a 40-year-old starter from Nicky and Keith Justo from Central Milling that we use in our bread that we still continuously use. Somebody gave me over 100-year starter just the other day from Parisian Bakery, which he said that they dried it out when they closed the bakery. It was a Bay Area, Colombo, Parisian, and Toscana bakery, which I kept and I restarted that to see how. But this 100-and-something-year-old starter, I smelled it. It's how you keep it. It's how you hold it. It's when you feed it. It's the temperature of that starter that is it 68 degrees, and it's like, wow, what happened? And all of a sudden you're at 75, and you're like, that's the sweet spot. And you're like, whoa, this is intense. So winter to summer and how you take care of it is important. And like he said, I can do a starter in 10 days, a natural starter, and it could be as sour as something I was going for 30 years, So there's a lot to manage when it comes to starters if you're naturally feeding them every day. So we do both.
So when you're making a pizza in a wood-fired pizza oven, what kind of woods do you prefer to use? Do you have a mixing of woods? Do you use like post oak with hickory or anything of that nature?
Yeah, in a wood-fired oven, it depends. You want to burn it hot and burn oak? Do you want it to be cherry, almond, and apricot and burn it a little lower? Certain woods burn hotter. Certain woods burn cooler. The size of the wood going into the oven and how big the oven is and how big the mouth is, because they're all variables. And is it domed? If you're looking at 900 degrees, it's oak, it's hot, it's not little wood chips. That's 900, 90 seconds, 60 seconds a bake. I want to cook maybe like Bianco and cook it a little longer and not be at 900. I want to be at 650, 700, then you smaller pieces of wood, different types of wood other than oak. And it's irrelevant to say I use apricot and cherry. You're not cooking in the smoke. That's the one thing that when you get trained or certified in Italy, you're cooking below the smoke. You may dome it for a couple seconds, but you're not smoking it like meat. So it's nice to have on a menu that we cook with apricot wood, but it's really irrelevant, like Beechwood aged Budweiser, sort of, I guess, if that makes sense to you. The thing about the starter, it is cool to say you have a 30-year starter on your menu. You always want to have some romantic conversation piece with somebody, and apricot wood, cherry wood, 30-year-old starter is not a bad thing to have on a menu. It is cool, so we're not detouring you from that, just to let you know on your question earlier. So. You cook with wood?
Yeah, we used to have a wood oven, and same. We used only hardwood, a lot of oak, alder, things like that. But it is fun to get really geeky about like the small pieces for flame and the big pieces for coal. And we actually ended up in the end, we switched over to electric now, but we used a lot of compressed wood, which was really a little more environmentally friendly. It fires really hot. And it works like hardwood or oak. It's not great for coals, but it kind of cuts up into these little pucks, and you can use them for flame. And they're just compressed with heat, and they were cheaper and just more environmentally friendly than using oak or another type of wood like that. Just a suggestion if you see those.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you.
Our panel. Thank you, Daniele.
I love it.
And, these guys will be milling around if you have more questions. Thank you all so much for coming. Oh, and Tony's got a book signing.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, book signing right now, 3 o'clock. Tony and Daniele are doing the book signing, I think, at the Surface Culinary tent right next to the theater. We got another demo coming up in 15 minutes. Noah Galutin is here, guys, from Don't Panic Pantry. Oh, look at that. The Karen Palmer fan section. That's awesome. That is great. And different looks, too. There was the tasting table era. There was the daily candy era. Very good.